When Kendra tossed the envelope onto the dining table, it didn't make a loud sound, just a soft, deliberate thump like she was placing down a napkin after dinner. But something about that small motion set off alarm bells. She didn't say a word, didn't give any context. She just dropped it there, turned toward the kitchen, and started rinsing her coffee mug, humming to herself like everything was fine. Everything wasn't fine. I felt it in the pit of my stomach. At first, I didn't even reach for it. I just sat there, watching her. The back of her, to be specific, how her shoulders looked tense under her blouse, how she was scrubbing that mug like it had personally offended her. Something was wrong. And she was trying to act like it wasn't. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive-looking. Not the kind of thing you get in junk mail. A hotel logo stood out in the top left corner, black and gold ink, modern font. I recognized it instantly. I'd stayed at that exact chain for a tech summit 2 years ago. One location in Portland. I remember because they gave out free slippers and Kendra wouldn't stop teasing me about how ridiculous they looked. But this envelope wasn't from me. And it wasn't from 2 years ago. The postmark date was recent. Very recent. I finally reached for it, slowly, half hoping it would be nothing, just a promo, maybe, or some misdirected corporate mail. But the second I tore it open, that hope vanished. It was a receipt. A hotel receipt. 2 nights, deluxe king suite, 2 guests. Room service charges, wine, pasta, breakfast for 2. All dated during the same week Kendra claimed she was in Seattle for a strategy retreat with her team. My fingers froze. My eyes scanned the check-in date. Check out. Her name was there, clear as day. Kendra Halston. Guest. Room 429. There was no mention of a conference. No corporate rate. Just a line that read, paid in full. Visa ending in 92. Our joint card. I didn't say anything. I just flipped the paper over almost reflexively. Blank. But Kendra noticed the movement. She glanced over her shoulder, and in that instant, everything shifted. She exhaled sharply like I'd just stolen the air out of the room. Oh, that, she said, turning fully now, drying her hands on a dish towel. Yeah, the front desk messed that up. I was with Angela from work. You've met her. Short redhead? I told you we were sharing a room to save the company some money. She was calm. Almost too calm. Like a news anchor reading from a script. The system must have registered 2 guests automatically because we were both there, she added, shrugging. I can call them and get it fixed if it's bothering you. But it wasn't the receipt that was bothering me. Not really. It was her voice. The overly even tone. The lack of surprise in her explanation. The way she stood there holding her breath just a second too long, like waiting to see if I'd accept the bait. It was how she avoided eye contact, how her fingers clenched the dish towel a little too tightly, how her body was just a few inches too stiff. It was how she offered an explanation before I even asked for one. I didn't respond. I just laid the receipt flat on the table and stared at it. It didn't say Angela anywhere. It didn't say conference. It said 2 guests. It said Portland. It said Deluxe King. And I remembered, Kendra wasn't supposed to be in Portland. Seattle. That's what she'd said. She even showed me her suitcase before leaving, talked about packing layers because of the weather up there. Showed me an itinerary with a tech-forward venue downtown. There was no mention of Portland. Not once. So why was she checking into a hotel 2.5 hours away with someone else? Still, I said nothing. Just let the silence do the talking. That's when she sat down across from me, slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal she didn't want to startle. You're looking at me like I murdered someone, she said lightly, trying to smile. Come on, you don't seriously think this is something shady, do you? I didn't answer. I didn't trust my voice. Instead, I kept looking at the paper. At the charge for room service wine. At the check-in time 10:43 p.m. At the name. Her name. Her initials signed in cursive at the bottom of the receipt. It wasn't just a receipt. It was a riddle wrapped in a lie. She leaned forward, still smiling, but now it looked forced. I know how this looks, babe. But you can ask Angela. She'll tell you. But that was the thing. I didn't know Angela. Never had. Kendra had mentioned her before, sure, but in passing, like she was just another name in the crowd. And suddenly, this barely mentioned coworker had become the central character in a story that didn't quite add up. I noticed her hands trembling slightly. Barely. But it was there. She reached out across the table like she wanted to take the receipt from me, but I moved my hand on top of it firmly. She hesitated, pulled her hand back. And I think that was the moment she realized I wasn't going to let this go. The silence stretched between us, long and uncomfortable. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. For 10 years, Kendra had been the most stable thing in my life. The one person I trusted without question. But now, my mind was racing back through time, replaying little moments I'd dismissed. Missed calls. Weekend trips. The way she started locking her phone 6 months ago. The sudden increase in solo team retreats. And that voice in the back of my head, the one I'd silenced for months, was getting louder. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was something else entirely. And this was the beginning. It's strange how hindsight works. How the smallest things, barely noticeable at the time, suddenly feel like sirens once you know where the road leads. The signs had been there. Not obvious, not screaming, but they existed. I just didn't want to see them. I convinced myself they were normal quirks, temporary stresses, things that would pass if I was just a little more patient, a little more understanding. A better husband. The changes started slowly. At first, it was little things, the way she started spending more time in the bathroom with the door locked. I remember the first time I noticed she was in there for over an hour, the fan humming constantly, muffling the soft click of her phone keys. I knocked once to ask if she was okay. She laughed it off, saying she was watching a skincare tutorial and lost track of time. That was months ago. Then came the outfit changes. Not dramatic, but deliberate. She always looked good. Kendra has a natural sense of style, but suddenly her work clothes became more curated. More polished. Like she was dressing not for comfort or professionalism, but for attention. Lipstick on a Tuesday. Heels for a staff meeting. I asked her about it once, trying to make it a compliment. "You look amazing today," I said, half teasing. "Should I be worried your coworkers are falling in love with you?" She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said they'd have to get in line behind you. It was cute. Charming. But the response felt automatic, like something she'd said before. Maybe to someone else. Over time, she became more protective of her phone. It never sat face up on the counter anymore. Always flipped over, always silent. If I reached for it by accident, just to move it off a stack of mail, her eyes would follow me like a hawk, even though I never snooped. I never gave her a reason to think I would. God, I was so careful not to be that guy. The jealous husband. The paranoid spouse. I trusted her. I wanted to trust her. But the distance kept growing. Our bedroom, once a place of comfort and routine, started feeling colder. Not just physically, but emotionally. Conversations faded into quick goodnights. She claimed she was tired from work, and I believed her, who wasn't exhausted lately. But she never seemed too tired for texts or late-night scrolling on her phone. Just too tired for me. One night, I caught her smiling in her sleep. It was soft, like a dream had pulled something sweet from her. I watched her for a moment, hoping it was about us, about a memory we shared. But when she woke and caught me looking, she turned over quickly, pulling the covers tighter around her. No words. No smile. And then the money. This was the part one kept pushing to the back of my mind, the part one didn't want to admit even to myself. We shared a joint account. Always had. Transparency was something we agreed on early in the marriage. But I started noticing strange withdrawals. Not large amounts, never enough to raise red flags with the bank, but they added up. 50 here, 80 there. Sometimes labeled miscellaneous, sometimes nothing at all. Once there was a charge for a rental car. When I asked her about it, she said her coworker's car broke down and they needed it for a client visit. Just easier that way, she said. It was faster to use our card than wait on corporate. I nodded. I trusted her. That was the theme, I guess. Trust. The kind that blinds you when it's misplaced. I wanted to ask more questions. So many times I wanted to just sit her down and say, "Kendra, are you hiding something from me?" But every time I got close, she'd disarm me. A thoughtful dinner. A sweet note in my lunchbox. A warm laugh at my jokes. Like she could sense when I was pulling away and knew exactly how to reel me back in. I told myself we were just going through a rough patch. Every couple does, right? Life gets busy. Passion fades. Stress builds. You just wait it out and remember why you got married in the first place. And I remembered. I remembered the little diner where we first met, how she corrected my order before I even spoke because she overheard me talking to a friend about my favorite sandwich. How she smiled when she did it. I remembered the weekend trip to Mendocino where we got caught in the rain and instead of running, she dragged me out to dance in the storm. I remembered the way she used to reach for my hand at red lights, not because she was afraid, but because she just wanted to be close. That's what kept me quiet. The memories. The hope that they still meant something. But slowly, hope turned to doubt. One Sunday, she said she was having brunch with the girls. I was folding laundry when she left, barely said goodbye, already typing something into her phone as she backed out of the driveway. 2 hours later, I realized something. I didn't know who the girls were. Not really. She mentioned names, Stephanie, Carly, Amanda, but I had never met them. No holiday parties. No casual barbecues. No double dates. Just names. Ghosts. Out of curiosity, or maybe desperation, I called her 20 minutes after she left. She didn't pick up. Texted me back an hour later, "Sorry, so loud here. Didn't hear it ring re heart?" The message felt curated. Like it was meant to be seen. Like she knew I might be looking closely. And it wasn't just that day. It was every little moment that added up until it became impossible to ignore. Once I caught a glimpse of her phone screen. A name I didn't recognize. Just Jay. A preview of a message that read, "You're too good to me." When I asked her who Jay was, she laughed. Said it was a vendor. "He gets dramatic," she said. "Salespeople are weird." She said it without blinking. But her hand tightened around the phone as she changed the subject. And that's when I felt it, that quiet, sharp pull in my chest. The one that says, "You already know the answer. You're just pretending you don't." From then on, I stopped making excuses for the feelings. I stopped pretending everything was okay. Instead, I started paying attention. And when the envelope arrived, when that hotel logo stared up at me from the dining table, I realized it was the final confirmation. A receipt, sure. But it was more than that. It was a mirror. One that showed me the version of our marriage I hadn't wanted to see. The signs were always there. The subtle shift in her energy. The quiet rewrites of our routine. The ** Macy that slipped out of the room one morning and never returned. I saw it now. The woman I loved was slipping away. And I didn't know who she was slipping toward. But I was about to find out. It was late on a Thursday, and I was digging through the garage, looking for the box of winter gear we always forgot we needed until the first cold snap hit. That's when I found it, buried behind a stack of old paint cans and tangled Christmas lights, our prenuptial agreement. Or rather, what was left of it. It was folded and crumpled, partially torn, as if someone had tried to shove it into the trash but changed their mind at the last minute. Or maybe they got interrupted. It shouldn't have been there. We kept all our important documents in a fireproof safe upstairs. I remembered putting it there myself. So how had it ended up in the garage, half hidden under a broken toaster and some tangled extension cords? I pulled it out slowly, my pulse rising. The signature page was missing. Then I saw it, a piece of paper shoved nearby, under a ragged cardboard flap. It wasn't part of the prenup. It looked like a note, handwritten in pen I recognized immediately. Not mine. Not Kendra's either. "Sunshine," it started. Just that one word, sunshine, and I felt the ground tilt under me. No one called her that. Not me. Not anyone I knew. It was too sweet, too personal. Too rehearsed. My eyes scanned the note, a message so casual it made me feel like an intruder in my own life. "Sunshine, I talked to Rick today. Says things are moving. Don't stall. You promised me a new life. And yeah, I'll need the car longer. My card's still frozen. Can you help again? Love you." I stood there, stunned, rereading the note. Every word chipped away at the person I thought I knew. Rick? New life? Card still frozen? Who the hell was this guy? The note was unsigned, but then my eyes caught something in the margin, barely visible, but there, Jay. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't. I stayed up, sitting in my office with the note in one hand and the shredded prenup on my desk. My head spun with questions. How long had she been hiding this? How far did it go? By morning, I had a plan. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. I searched the recycling bin, the trash, the laundry room, even her car when she was in the shower. That's when I found the charger, an extra phone charger tucked into the glove box. No phone, but it didn't belong there. We didn't keep chargers in the car. Later that day, when Kendra left for client follow-ups, I started going through the desk drawers in the home office. It felt wrong. Like breaking a promise. But whatever promise we had, she broke first. Inside a manila folder labeled consulting expenses, I found printouts. Dozens of them. Emails, *TS, some printed texts. One email subject line stopped me cold. Car rental confirmed for next week, Portland. The same week as her Seattle trip. The sender's name? Justin. There it was. I stared at that name for what felt like forever. Justin. From the contents of their correspondence, it was clear, this wasn't casual. This wasn't a fling that happened one drunk night at a hotel. This was a relationship. A hidden, planned, ongoing relationship that went back nearly a year. They had coordinated logistics. They'd met in multiple cities. She had sent him money, confirmed by one PDF attachment labeled transfer confirmation, May. They weren't just sleeping together. She was supporting him. And he wasn't just a coworker or a friend. Justin was living in another state, job hopping, looking for opportunities. In one message, he talked about launching a project, but there were no real details, just vague ideas and constant delays. And in nearly every message, he asked for something. A wire transfer. An extension. A place to stay. In one particularly desperate message, he mentioned his car breaking down again and hinted that Kendra should get rid of the prenup soon. The tone was pushy. Entitled. And yet, she responded kindly. Supportively. She told him she'd handle it. That it was almost done. That he just needed to be patient. She called him baby. He called her sunshine. I sat there, feeling like I just stepped out of my own body. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was slow. Heavy. Like my chest was filling with cement. Everything I thought was solid, our marriage, our finances, our routines, had been built on a lie. Or maybe a series of them. I had been loyal, working overtime, sacrificing time with friends and family to keep our life together stable. Meanwhile, she was using that stability to bankroll another man's fantasy. I wanted to scream. Break something. Anything. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I sat still. Quiet. Trying to figure out what came next. Kendra got home a few hours later. I watched her through the front window as she parked. Her face was calm, her movements normal. She came inside, gave me a distracted kiss on the cheek, and went straight to the kitchen to pour a glass of wine. Like nothing had changed. And maybe for her, nothing had. She had been living this double life for months, maybe longer. She had grown used to the balance, the lies, the routine of deception. To her, it was normal now. But to me, everything had changed. I went back to the office that night, locked the door, and made copies, everything I found, scanned and stored. The emails, the note, the altered prenup, even the car rental invoices. I backed them up in cloud storage, printed them, and kept a flash drive in the garage buried in the old toolbox she never touched. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. About control. For the first time in months, I had something she didn't, the truth. And I wasn't going to waste it. They say knowledge is power, but that's only half the truth. Knowledge is potential. Power is what you do with it. After I found the emails, the torn prenup, and the notes from Justin, I sat in silence for a long time. Not broken. Not angry. Just recalibrating. The world I thought I was living in didn't exist anymore. The woman I came home to every night wasn't the woman I thought I'd married. And yet she had no idea I knew. That gave me time. Time to move first. The next morning, I got up before Kendra, made her coffee, kissed her on the temple, and told her to have a great day. She smiled, told me I was sweet, and disappeared out the door in a flurry of keys, perfume, and fabricated phone calls. She thought everything was normal. That was my advantage. The first thing I did was visit my bank. I opened a new personal account, one with a different institution entirely, and began transferring small amounts of money from our joint savings. Nothing big enough to trigger an alert. Just a few hundred here, a few thousand there. Spread out over a few days. I told the banker it was for an investment opportunity. That wasn't a lie. It was an investment in freedom. Next came the house. Our home was technically in both our names, but we had refinanced it 3 years ago and I'd been the sole contributor on the new mortgage. I contacted an old friend, Tyler, who worked at a real estate agency downtown. He put me in touch with a lawyer who specialized in asset protection. We pulled all the paperwork and I confirmed what I'd hoped. Everything I had purchased before our marriage was still legally mine, thanks to that forgotten prenup Kendra tried to destroy. She hadn't counted on me remembering that clause. Or having a copy. I went to the safe in our bedroom while she was at yoga and retrieved the original prenup. Still sealed in the envelope I had placed it in 5 years ago. Untouched. I scanned it, copied it, and handed the copies to my lawyer, along with a full timeline of Kendra's affair, documentation of financial transactions, and the names Justin and Rick. Every detail I found, every invoice, message, transfer, was sorted, labeled, and archived. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was preparing. The hardest part was pretending. Pretending to care when she talked about work. Pretending to believe her when she said she had an overnight offsite and needed to crash at a hotel with a few coworkers. Pretending not to see the credit card charges from the same boutique hotel where she and Justin had stayed before. But I smiled. I nodded. I kissed her goodbye. She thought she was playing a game I hadn't even entered. She had no idea I was already rewriting the rules. I moved the rest of my savings, disconnected my name from every shared utility and online account, and pulled my name off any recurring charges linked to her phone or email. I opened a P.O. box. I contacted a second lawyer just in case. I even set up a burner phone through a secure app, in case I needed to speak freely without leaving traces on our shared plan. The only thing I didn't do was confront her. Not yet, because I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to believe she still had control, that she was still calling the sh*ts. That illusion would be her undoing. About a week later, she came to me with an unexpected suggestion. We should take a break. She said it over dinner, carefully, like she was offering me a vacation instead of a disintegration. Her tone was cautious, rehearsed. I think we just need some space, she said, swirling her wine. To reset. I still love you, but things feel off lately. Off? That was rich coming from someone siphoning our life into another man's fantasies. Still, I played my part. Maybe you're right, I said. Maybe some time apart could help. She seemed surprised, almost disappointed I didn't protest. We could both use clarity, I added. A clean perspective. She smiled then, small, relieved. Yeah, she said. Exactly. She thought I'd roll over, that I'd beg her to stay, that I'd plead for answers and make promises to do better. But I didn't. I just said, let's talk about logistics. Her face twitched. She hadn't expected me to be calm or organized. I can stay with a friend for a bit, she said, a little too quickly. Just until things settle. I nodded. Sure. But the house stays with me. She blinked. What? The house? I said evenly. I'm not leaving it. It's mine. You can check the documents. You signed off on that when we refinanced. She looked stunned. She tried to argue, but I held up a hand. Don't worry. We'll handle it fairly. But I'm not going anywhere. She didn't respond. Just sat there, slowly realizing she'd lost the upper hand. Over the next few days, her mask began to slip. She started asking odd questions, checking my phone screen when she thought I wasn't looking, being overly affectionate in the mornings, like she was trying to pull something back she'd already thrown away. Then one night, I overheard her on the phone in the hallway, whispering, "You said this would be done by now. I told you I was working on it. No, he doesn't suspect anything. He's being weird lately, but I think he'll cave soon." Her voice cracked toward the end, desperate. Justin wasn't waiting patiently anymore. He wanted results, and she was stalling. That was when I knew. She wasn't just cheating. She was plotting. Whether it was marriage sabotage or financial escape, I didn't know. But she wasn't planning a future with me. She was planning an exit. She just didn't realize I'd already beat her to the door. The strange thing about betrayal is that, once the fire fades, what's left isn't rage. It's silence. It's that crushing stillness when you realize the person who used to fill a room with laughter now avoids your eyes. That they're there, physically, but their souls packed up and left weeks ago. That was the phase Kendra and I had entered. A cold, heavy quiet where conversations sounded like small talk between strangers. We still moved around the house like a couple, shared coffee in the mornings, exchanged tired, "How was your day, S?" But it was all mechanical. The warmth was gone. The safety, the rhythm. She tried to pretend at first. After I refused to move out, she shifted gears. Less confrontation, more performative affection. She cooked more often, smiled too brightly, complimented me on shirts I hadn't worn in months. Once, she even lit candles in the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed like it was 2017 again. But I knew it wasn't real. It was desperation in disguise. And beneath the act, her cracks were showing. One morning, I caught her staring into her phone like she was reading a breakup letter. Her face was slack, pale. When she noticed me watching, she quickly flipped it over and forced a laugh, pretending to check the weather. But her eyes were red, her lips quivering. That evening, she tried to act normal, but I could tell something was wrong. She burned dinner. Kendra never burns anything. She poured herself 2 glasses of wine and drank them both. And when I told her I'd be working late in the office, she didn't even ask what for. That was the first night I heard her cry. Not sobbing, just soft, muffled sounds leaking through the bedroom wall while I sat hunched over my laptop, reviewing final edits to the divorce documentation. She didn't know I could hear her, but I did. First, I felt nothing, then guilt, then frustration, then oddly relief. It meant the walls were closing in. On her. Not me. She wasn't getting what she thought she would. A few days later, the facade finally buckled. I came home early from work to grab some contracts and found her in the backyard, pacing, barefoot in the grass with her phone pressed so tightly to her ear I thought she might crush it. I didn't announce myself, just stood inside, behind the patio door, watching her unravel. "You promised me, Justin?" She was whispering, raw panic in her voice. "I gave up everything. I stalled him like you said. I'm doing what I can, but you keep changing the plan. You said we'd be in Colorado by now. You said." She stopped, then cursed, and threw the phone down into the grass. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at it like it might say sorry. I backed away quietly, let her believe I hadn't seen. I wanted her to stew in it, in the loneliness, the uncertainty, the sound of her fantasy collapsing. Because Justin, he wasn't sticking to the script. Whatever he'd promised, whatever future they'd whispered about in late-night texts and overpriced hotel rooms, it wasn't happening. Maybe he thought I'd fold fast, that I'd be another heartbroken pushover who'd settle, divide everything 50-50, and disappear. But I hadn't. And now, Kendra wasn't just watching her marriage slip through her fingers. She was watching her escape route vanish, too. The next few days were even stranger. She started hovering around me in the kitchen, asking pointless questions. "Did you see the new coffee beans? Are you using the upstairs printer now? Do you still talk to your sister?" Small talk from a woman who used to know every corner of my life. One evening, she brought home dinner, Thai from our favorite place. She set it up on the table like nothing had changed, lit a candle, and poured my drink just the way I liked it, as if she could rewind us back to before I saw the receipt, before Justin, before the prenup landed in the trash. I sat across from her, eating silently, waiting for her to speak. Her eyes flickered across my face, searching for something. A flicker of forgiveness, a softness, a lifeline. But I was done offering those. She cleared her throat. "Mark." Her voice was low, hesitant. "I know things have been weird lately. Look, I know we've both made mistakes." "Both?" That was the moment I looked up, met her gaze, and saw her truly for what she was. Not a misunderstood wife. Not a confused partner. A woman who was still, even now, trying to split the blame. I didn't speak. I just stared, until she looked away. She never finished her sentence. That night, I lay in bed while she showered. Her phone buzzed twice on the nightstand. I didn't look. I didn't need to. I knew who it was, and I knew he was slipping through her fingers. The next day, she didn't leave the house. Claimed she was working remotely. I stayed in the office, finishing my final checklist. Bank account confirmed, P.O. box key secured, legal docs prepped for filing. The whole day, I could feel her presence, lingering, drifting past the office like a ghost. By late afternoon, I heard the unmistakable sound of her crying again. This time not from the bedroom, but from the laundry room. Low, hopeless sobs, punctuated by what I swore were whispered apologies to no one. Justin wasn't calling back. The plan was crumbling. She had no one left to turn to. That night, she didn't cook, didn't hover, didn't try. She just stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed, and asked in a brittle voice, "Are you happy?" I turned off the desk lamp and looked at her. "No," I said, "but I'm getting there." She nodded once, almost imperceptibly, then turned away and closed the door. It was the quietest night we'd had in months. But for the first time, the silence didn't scare me, comforted me, because it meant she finally understood. This wasn't a fight she could fix with charm. This was a reckoning. The next step wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was a quiet, deliberate shift, just like betrayal had been. I changed the locks. Legally, I could. The house was mine. The mortgage, the deed, the updated paperwork, everything was under my name thanks to the prenup she tried to erase. She had already floated the idea of space, and I took her up on it. Told her I thought she was right, that maybe time apart would be good. She didn't know I meant permanently. When she left for a few days at Carly's place, I waited exactly 20 minutes before calling a locksmith. The guy was fast, no questions asked. An hour later, every door had a new key. I stood there afterward, keys in hand, staring at the front door like it was the last piece of the wall I'd built between her and whatever illusion she thought was still standing. 3 days later, she came back. I watched on the door camera as she tried her key, fumbled, then froze. Confusion, then panic, then anger all played across her face. She rang the bell. Knocked. Called my name. Then she saw the camera. "Mark," she said through clenched teeth, trying to sound composed. "Open the door." I didn't. She called again. And again. Her voice cracked. She knocked louder. "Just 5 minutes," she begged through the door. "Please. You owe me that." Oh? That word lit a fuse in me. But I didn't move. I sat in the living room watching the screen, her figure shrinking when she finally stepped back. She left a note under the mat. A short one. "Please. Just 5 minutes. I don't know where to go." But that wasn't my problem anymore. She'd made her choice. And now she was living in its shadow. A week passed. She texted me from unknown numbers. Called from blocked IDs. Left voicemails full of guilt and rehearsed regret. "Mark, I never wanted to hurt you. Can't we talk, just once? Please?" I was lost. I see that now. But I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. And then, like fate kicking in one last twist, I saw her. It was a Tuesday morning. I was pulling into a coffee shop before a meeting, minding my own business, when I spotted her across the street. Kendra. But not the version I remembered. She was standing by a bench, holding a suitcase. Hair thrown up messily, coat wrinkled, bags under her eyes. And next to her, slouched against a wall, was Justin. Sweatpants. Backpack. Looking at his phone like he didn't even notice she was there. He said something and then he walked off. Didn't wait. Didn't look back. Just left her standing there with her bag and a silence even heavier than mine had ever been. She turned and that's when she saw me. Our eyes met. She froze. Her mouth opened slightly like she didn't know what to say. I didn't get out. I didn't wave. I just rolled down my window. She crossed the street slowly. Like a ghost. Like she wasn't sure if I'd disappear. When she reached the car, she didn't cry. Didn't shout. Just whispered, "I didn't expect it to end like this." "I did," I said. She blinked, caught off guard. "I thought I wanted more," she said, voice thin. "But I lost everything." "No," I replied. "You traded everything. For something that didn't exist." She nodded once. "I'm sorry, Mark. I know. I still, don't," I cut in gently. "Let's not lie to each other anymore." I rolled the window up. Slowly. Not out of cruelty, but finality. She stepped back, hands trembling slightly. No anger. No pity. Just the end. As I pulled away, I glanced once in the rearview mirror. She was still standing there. Alone. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel hollow. I felt free.